Hi, I'm Father Thomas, and this is MonkWerks. I'd like to welcome you to my shop. Wait a second. This isn't it. Give me a second to see if I can find the footage. Well, this is my shop. As you'll see, it's not necessarily that big of a place, but it definitely gives adequate amount of space, and there's some storage. But for the most part, it has what's needed, and I'll give you a little bit of tour of some of the various tools that we have and some of the spaces that we have for storage, and how I'm trying to use this particular place. This here's my newest acquisition. The Craftsman jointer. It's a 6 1/8 inch jointer. I actually just recently got this less than a couple of weeks ago. It's one of those Craigslist find, it seems to be working fairly well. There are some setup things that I still need to do with this, and so it's not really fully into use in production yet at this point. I've kind of only so far just kind of cleaned up the surfaces, the fence, the beds, and then put a little bit of wax on as well.
It may be a mess, but it's a well-used corner. We have our 12-inch Delta bandsaw, as well as our 12-inch Delta planer over here. You can also see and notice that there is some wood storage over here. This is mainly a lot of odds and ends, kind of cut-offs and cast-offs that might be able to be used for other projects. When you're talking multi-tools, I immediately always think of the Shopsmith. That has a lot of different capabilities and functions. Primarily though in this shop it's used for its drum sanding capabilities and also as a drill press. In a small shop, storage is always at a premium. In this particular cabinet we have some of the accessories to the Shopsmith, as well as some fasteners, and we've also got some other smaller tools as well. Above there we have some of the finishes that we use, as well as some glue. Moving over to the workbench, above it we have a pegboard which allows us to store a variety of different things, such as the angle jig for the table saw or dado stack, various clamps, some hammers, some screwdrivers, some of our measuring tools, our saws. I'm not a fan of storing wood vertically. However, this small corner is the only place that I have to keep my wood together. As you can see, I've got a couple of different varieties of species that I like to work with. Principally, what I usually have on hand is some white oak, as well as Ducey and a little bit of Catalox. And currently I happen to have some sassafras as well for the outdoor bench that I'm currently working on. The wood is hiding some of the cabinetry that's also underneath the workbench. In them are the routers, the drills, and the random orbit sanders. On top of the bench is where the Craftsman mortiser is at, and it's light enough and small enough that it can be moved to any place needed.
There is some built-in wood storage in this particular shop, as you can see here. But most of this wood is not mine to be able to use, even though there's some really nice wood that's on here. There's some nice quarter sawn oak up here. There's some nice mahogany down at the bottom that I don't think you can quite see. But then there's also a lot of little odds and ends and things like that. And we also have some material like this for us to make templates and things out of in the project. Templates are actually one of the things that I like to use when I'm doing working. I find that they help to create those repeatable pieces for some of the projects that I do. In particular, the project that I'm doing right now on the outdoor bench is very much dependent upon templates, because I have a lot of pieces that have to be exactly the same because it's a slat style bench. And so there are 10 seat slats, vertical seat slats, and you'd be exactly the same. And also on one side of the leg, there's 9 slats that also have to be exactly the same. And so having a template and use this wood, use some of these materials in order to create those repeatable things are very helpful, I find.
One of the things in the shop we spared absolutely no expense on was our air filtration system shown here. As you can also see, I've already gotten a squirrel fan in order to create a larger air filtration system.
Now, one of the tools you don't see as often in wood shops today is the radial arm saw, but it's actually one that I use on a fairly regular basis. This particular tool is able to cut compound angles over wider boards. Now, of course, there are other tools that are able to cut those compound angles, but not necessarily at the same width. For instance, this particular Sears Craftsman radial arm saw is able to cut boards up to 10 inches in width, which you would not necessarily be able to do on some of your more standard miter saws.
The workhorse of any shop, I believe, is the table saw. Now, the table saw doesn't necessarily have to be a big, fancy, expensive one. We only have this Craftsman contractor saw, but it's able to get the job done. The miter gauge, push sticks, and fences are nearby for easy use.
The last major tool that we have in the shop is the lathe. Now, the lathe holds a special place in my heart. It's the very first tool that I got to use. My father had a shopsmith, and that was one of the ones that he let me use on my own. I wouldn't necessarily have to be supervised by him in order to use it, probably when I was about maybe 12 or 13 years old. And I was fascinated by this particular tool because you're able to take an ordinary block of wood and you could turn it into almost anything. I particularly remember the very first project I ever did on that was a salt and pepper shaker for my mother for Christmas one year. And so it is a very special tool to me. Unfortunately, though, I'm not able to use it in my projects all that much. The last project I used it on was a couple of years ago, and I could definitely tell my skills had kind of diminished in the fact that I hadn't been using it in a while. So I don't use it all that often. Well, I hope you enjoyed the tour of the shop to see a little bit of the space that I have to work with and some of the tools that I can use in order to build my projects. Of course, it's not the most ideal situation. There's still some issues with stores, there's some issues of tool placement and those sorts of things, but for the most part it is adequate for what it is that I hope to be able to do in here and to be able to share with you as well. And so my next episode then will actually be that very first build. In the last episode, I said there were a couple of things that I was thinking about working on. There was the candle box, or there was the shoe shine box. And so I think it'll be a good one to start. So thank you again for watching MonkWerks, and I invite you to subscribe to my channel to keep updated on all the things that we're going to be doing on here. And so thank you again, and may God bless you.